let's start to look at the use of Kimura for older and less athletic athletes. Kimura has a similarity with the American lock. First, it's a twisting lock, unlike Katagatame, a linear lock. American and Kimura locks are just inversions of each other. The idea is to create a twisting lock. Kimura has a much higher percentage success rate than the American lock for reasons that we outlined during the section on the American lock. It is the more high percentage lock of the two. It is perfect for older and less athletic athletes. Why? Because you don't lose pin control when you go to apply it in most cases, okay? Particularly in the cases that we're going to be looking at and focusing on. So many of the major submission holds of the sport require you to go from a pin, release the pin to go into the submission. And when you make that release, there's an interface between the pin and the submission where an opponent can escape. And you can end up getting punished going for a submission hold. One of the beauties of the versions of Kimura that we're going to look at for the purpose of this video is that you typically keep your pinning position on top of your opponent. So with that in mind, we're going to start off with a training partner underneath us and we're in side control. First things first, everything would be very easy if your opponent's hand was lower than his elbow. When the hand is lower than the elbow, it's very easy to lock a wrist and start going directly into a Kimura lock. Unfortunately, most of your opponents don't do that. They typically have their hands higher than their elbow. And as a result, it can be quite tricky to get into a Kimura. That's why the American lock is a useful substitute. When the hand is high, American locks become easier. When the hand is low, Kimura locks become easier. Okay. Nonetheless, there is a simple trick to help us get around this. This is underhand gripping. When we go to attack, what most people do is they always start with an overhand grip, where their hand starts on top of their training partner's wrist. This is perfect when the hand is lower than the elbow, but it is physically impossible because of the angle when the hand is higher than the elbow. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with an underhanded grip, where instead of going palm down, we're going to come in palm up. We're going to lock in just like so. Okay, so in a situation where we pin our training partner just like this, we're going to start off taking our elbow across our training partner's body, and as he keeps his hand down close to his chest, we're going to come in and we're going to lock palm up like this. Now we're going to come down to our training partner's elbow. We're going to pull down and convert into a situation where the hand comes in very, very easily, and we've got to our lock. So once again, your opponent has his hands in a good defensive position. We're going to start off in a basic pin, top, head, and arm like so. We're going to substitute a crossface for a reverse crossface and lock in. Now, watch my hand. I bring it in. Keep your elbows in tight. We're going to take our hand. We're going to come in palm up, and we're going to grab a hold of our training partner's wrist just like so. Now we're going to use that to pull his hand down towards his belly button, which always makes it easier to enter into the lock. Now I bring my wrist underneath my training partner's forearm and I push his elbow over my fist to begin the action of locking up. Now, just rotate this way a little bit, Drew. Okay. From here, I want to get his hand down to the floor. How are we going to do this? Make a strong resistant hand, buddy. We're going to take 2-on-1. Just like so. And then from this position, we're going to take his hand up and then bring it down and put it on the floor. Once it goes on the floor, then our whole thing is a partial set out. Ultimately, what we want to do is put his hand behind his back. The way we do this is we step over our training partner's head and I push with my left leg so that I expose his back. It's hard for me just to push it behind his back when his back is already on the ground. We have to expose his back. I don't want to go too far and get crazy here, but I do want his back coming up off the mat. And that's going to enable us to walk the hand in like so, so it comes up into the middle of his back behind his spine. Once we get to this position, we start widening our legs. The most common mistake here is I see people bring their legs together. Okay, now you've got no base. He's not going anywhere, fellas. So we just want to get a good wide split in our legs and bring our elbow down to his elbow. And now I never push with my hands. I pull with my elbow. In this case, it's my left elbow. I just pull and we get our break. Okay. The most common mistakes we see are people bring their legs together and they try to push with their hands. Never going to break anyone's arm that way. From this position, we create a good wide split, and then we take our elbow all the way through, and I pull with my arm. And as we hit that pulling action, that's what creates movement out and away in this direction. Your opponent's forearm points the way of the lock. Don't try to bring the hand backwards into your opponent. No. You want to take everything out in this direction. Don't let this hand be the one that does the work. Let the frame arm take everything out in this direction. So it's the straightening of my left arm which does the work. And it's best done when our whole body is over his body. When he goes to disrupt my base, move me around, you feel very stable here. I know it looks like you're going to be more stable pinching him in here, but really you're not. We widen everything out, and there's the breaking pressure we're looking for. So, once again, training partner's got his arms in close to his body. It's going to be hard to get into a regular Kimura. Okay? So we start off bringing everything in. We bring our arms over his arms, and then we come in palm up. We start fishing for our training partner's wrist. In time, we work his wrist down the body until we feel we've got everything under control. This can be quite time-consuming in a live situation. Okay, don't rush into it. Take your time. Now from here, I bring my elbow up here to his wrist, and I just push his wrist over the top, and I get my hand as far through as possible. Now, as I get two hands on one from this position, we pull our training partner up, and then we focus on taking his hand back to ourselves, like so. Don't try to go straight down to the ground. Make strong arm, buddy. I can't go through his body. I have to go over. So I take the hand towards me first. I bring the arm up, and then we put it in behind his back. Now we start that first sit-through motion. I don't want to put pressure on without trapping his head. Sit up towards me, Drew. That's no good. So from here, we want to trap his head by stepping over it. We don't want to contract, and then from here, try to push the arm. It never creates any real pressure. We want to step across our training partner and bring everything in towards him. Head up, hips down. Now from this position, I take my elbow to his elbow, and we just pull with the left elbow, and we get a very strong break as a result. Okay, done in this fashion, the Kimura is a very, very intimidating, powerful break. Like any move, Kimura will be performed at its best when all the little details are fleshed out in a good sequence in ways which maximize your mechanical efficiency. Let's have a look at some of these pertinent details. Okay, first, it's very, very hard to break people's arms when they're fully extended out like so. You can do it, but it's harder. So whenever we can, we always want to keep the arm bent at a minimum of 90 degrees and preferably even more. Best way for us to do this, control the end of the lever. Don't grab the wrist, okay? Grab the hand with your thumb going right there where the veins of the wrist are exposed, and you can control your training partner like so. Grab your own hand so that you have 2-on-1. If I grab my own wrist, it's just 1-on-1. He extends his arm, he's gone. We want to make sure, just like we did with the American lock, once we get control of this guy, we want to lock it in by gripping our own hand. I always recommend with the Kimura, the best place for you to have your hand is knuckles down, pushing into him. So we lock up just like so. So when you go to apply the lock, you'll see my knuckles are pointed downwards, okay? Fixate on keeping his hand behind his back. The further out his arm becomes, the less successful you're going to be. Okay, the whole thing is to keep that hand in close to the spine. Walk everything in over his diaphragm. I'm not even stepping over, but poor Drew will tell you in this situation, once I step over the diaphragm, just that action of diaphragm pressure is huge. Okay, when the hips are back and the head is down, there's no pressure. Drew feels no pressure in this position. When you step forward and go in, even without the Kimura lock, I'm going to release the Kimura, just the act of putting weight over the diaphragm makes it extremely uncomfortable for your training partner. Okay? If the hand does get extended, if the arm rather, does get extended, we have a slightly different breaking mechanic. Okay? First, I go no thumb. The more the arm is bent in, the more I use my thumb to control my training partner. The more extended my training partner's arm, the more I go without the thumb. In this position, we're going to get over our training partner's diaphragm, and then again, I won't even step over his head. What we focus on here is just this action of pulling with the elbow. What everyone does wrong is they try to push with the hand on the wrist. What you want to do is to pull with the arm underneath his elbow. That's what creates the pressure you're looking for. You can do a partial sit through, just like so. Don't sit all the way through and start coming up off the mat. Partial sit through, just like so. And this creates very, very strong pressure, even on an extended arm. In cases where your opponent successfully sits up towards you, don't be intimidated by this. Just put the hand behind his back, and then from here, face away from him. Put pressure on the arm, push him right back in the direction he came, and just continue the same lock as before. And as a result, you'll get to your breaks. Okay? Let's have a look at some more pertinent details. There is a curve of power used in any Kimura lock. What we want to do is take my body and line it up in a diagonal line from near side shoulder down to the hip. I don't want to be completely perpendicular to him. What I want to do is to have my hips on the near side shoulder and my head towards the far side hips. This is the ideal position for us to be in. When we get this diagonal position, that's the one thing that makes it easiest for us to cover our training partner's head. And as my head comes down towards the hips, that creates the optimal breaking position on the arm, regardless of whether it's bent or straight. Okay? So this is the position we want to be. Almost something like north-south. You don't want to be completely perpendicular. That takes pressure away from him, enables him to get his back to the ground. If his back goes to the ground, even if I have the hand behind his back, I can't finish it with his back on the floor. Your whole thing is to create an almost quasi-north-south feel. And it's that which enables you to cover his diaphragm and take his back effortlessly off the floor. So even with a straight arm, which is less than optimal, you'll still get tremendously strong breaks. And with a bent arm, forget about it. It's truly intimidating. Okay? So make sure we're never truly perpendicular, but rather a diagonal line from far hip to near shoulder with your elbow centered down by that far hip and your head over that elbow with a good wide base in this position here. This is where you do your best breaking from. Okay? So as far as entering into the Kimura goes, the best ones when the arms are in good defensive positions are palm up methods. Where we start off in a good pin on top of our training partner, using distraction to work our way in and get to our training partner's hand, taking our time to work the hand lower and lower on the body until the hand is down by the belly button. That's the best place to start going for Kimuras. We take our elbow up to his elbow so we can quickly push everything over the top and lock up that first figure of four. Then we convert our body into that diagonal line, the line of power that goes from our training partner's near shoulder down to the far hip. We do our best to keep the hand behind the back and the arm bent at 90 degrees. We go into that wide step that enables us to cover the diaphragm, and from here we get very strong breaks. If the arm begins to straighten, no problem. From here we can still work with a straightened arm. It'll still work just fine, but it will require that we get that good pulling action. Focus on the pull of your elbow rather than the push of your hands, okay? Your hands stop his hand from moving. Even on a fully extended arm, that's all they do, is they stop his hand from moving. The dynamic part of it is your elbow pulling, okay? Always understand Kimura for what it is. It's a pulling lock, not a pushing one. Don't push with the hands, pull with the elbow, okay? If you can get these details right, you'll have a formidable Kimura. Now, if we're going to be effective out of pins with Kimura, there's a skill that we have to learn. This is the skill of rolling an opponent through. One of the distinctive features of a well-applied Kimura is that you will have to expose your opponent's back. You will have to pull his back up off the ground. As you deal with better opponents, they will time your movement as you go to expose their back off the ground. And they will try to sit up. That will either result in a broken arm. If you apply the lock at full power, you'll snap their arm, or they really will get up on top of you. Okay, they're taking a calculated risk when they do this. What they're trying to do is to get their hand from behind their back in front of them, into a position where they can recover from. So it is an intelligent gambit on their part. They're making a risky move, but a move that does have a logic behind it. It's critical, if you're going to call yourself a Kimura specialist, that you be able to deal with this common counters to top pinning Kimuras. Let's have a look at it right now. Okay, so we've done a good job of getting to the Kimura grip. And now it's time to get his back off the ground and actually finish this guy. When we go to do this, we step over the head and go to push. Our opponent can just sit up into us. And sometimes when this happens, you're like, oh shit, I lost control of the position. Okay? He's still got his hand behind the back. That's the good news. But the bad news is your back is going to start going on the ground. When you see this happen, don't worry. As long as the hand stays behind the back, everything is good. So just focus on that. Let your back touch the ground and be confident that as long as you control the hand behind the back, everything is fine. Even if his arm extends, even that is okay. So long as the hand stays behind his back, that's fine. Now, what we're going to do is point in the direction we want him to go. And I'm going to take his hand towards the floor, forcing him into another roll. Even as he comes up, we come back into the same position we were just in. And as a result, we get a second chance at the move. And as a result, we can get to our win. Now, if our opponent was a very athletic type and even rolled us through a second time, we could repeat this process as many times as it takes. Usually it only takes one or two. Okay, if you're getting rolled over 4, 5, or 6 times, something's gone wrong. But getting rolled through once or twice, it's all part of the fun, and we get through into our break. So let's have a look at this again. From a situation where we've managed to get to our Kimura. And now we've got to take his back off the ground, because as long as Drew, just put your back flat on the mat and turn to your left. Good. Okay, I can't really break him here because there's no space to break his arm into. You need to create space. So what we do is we push with our left leg, we take his back off the ground. And that's when you can start breaking people. Drew knows that. And so he starts sitting up. You're like, oh shit, I'm losing the position. And from here, we just push and take him right over. And as a result, we're right back where we came from. When we try to expose his back, Drew does the same thing. Takes us over. And we just have no problem following this guy, however many times it takes, until we step over. Then from here, legs come down and it's done. Even if the arm straightens out all the way, completely straight out, it means nothing. So long as you're doing a good job of pulling rather than pushing, everything's good. Okay? Remember, guys, your whole thing is to just take everything with that pull action. Stop his hand moving with this hand. Make his arm move with the pull. Okay? It's push and pull. It creates a strong lock. And when you figure for it, that's when it becomes truly intimidating. Okay? So, rolling an opponent through with the Kimura. Now, let's spend some time on north-south strangles. These are another form of submission which I believe are peculiarly well suited to older or less athletic athletes for a set of reasons we'll soon look at. Now, it might seem odd for me to say this because some of the most famous athletes in ADCC history, Jeff Monson and Marcelo Garcia, both used this move very successfully throughout their careers. And no one would say either of those men were unathletic. So you probably, what the hell, this is used by very athletic people. Why are you saying it's well suited for non-athletic people? Well, it's true. They were both very athletic players, but the very nature of it suits it well to people who don't have great mobility. There's no great mobility required in principle for the application of this move. And the big theme that we're trying to push on you in this video is that the best submission holds for people, as your athleticism diminishes, the best kind of submissions are those which deviate the least from your positional pins. Okay? Most of the famous submission holds in jiu-jitsu, you're either pinning the guy or you're submitting him. And when you go for the submission, you have to deviate away from the pin. The best submission holds for older and less athletic people are those which enable you to stay in the pin as you apply the submission hold. So things like Katagatame, Kimura, at least the variations we looked at, the American lock. These all enable you to enact the submission hold while you maintain the pin. And the north-south strangle is a great example of this. Okay, you stay on top of your opponent. If you screw it up and it goes wrong, you're still on top of them. You didn't lose your position. So for this reason, and the fact it doesn't require any kind of flexibility, you just literally flatten yourself out on the floor. You don't need to go to invert or do anything crazy to be able to enter into the move. It's a great move for people who are a little less athletic. Let's have a look at some of the key ideas.
Which way do you want
Just lie down here, Chin, and we'll get you to move around this way. Okay. The most important ideas behind the north-south strangle. If I'm going to perform a right-handed strangle, I want my opponent facing away to the right. At a minimum, his head should be facing vertically up to the ceiling. This is the minimum requirement. And better still would be a situation where he was facing away somewhere from 90 degrees to the floor to 45 degrees, somewhere around there. What we don't want is our opponent facing towards us. That's going to screw everything up and make it very difficult for us to go into the strangle. So at a minimum, we have to be able to create conditions where his face is going up and preferably slightly away from us. So that's your first big thing. Secondly, you got to have his head ever so slightly off the mat. Why? Because at some point, your forearm and elbow has to go under his head. So if his head is bolted down to the mat, you're not going to be able to do the move. So your first two prerequisites, you got to be able to get the head ever so slightly off the mat and ever so slightly facing away from you. And then thirdly, you got to be able to keep it there. Okay? It's no good having the guy start facing away from you, and then as you enter into the move, he turns back towards you. That's no good. So we're going to have to create some kind of obstacle that prevents him from coming back. Okay? If we can do those things, you can finish a lot of people with north-south strangles. Let's start looking at the straight up mechanics of a north-south strangle. We have a guy down on the floor. Like any strangulation, we're going to have to close off both sides of our opponent's neck, both carotid arteries. Our bicep is going to do it on one side, and your rib cage is going to do it on the other. Okay? For a right-handed strangle. Most important things from here. When we go to enter on our training partner, we want to take our elbow forwards. You know what? I'll demonstrate this from another angle. Sorry, that was stupid of me to demonstrate it from that side. Okay, I'm going for a right arm strangle. It's important that when I go in, I never want to have a shallow elbow. That way, I will never get my forearm in the right place to strangle. So when we go to enter, I want to take my whole elbow forward and touch his clavicle and shoulders and trap muscle. Okay? Don't come in with your elbow around his temple. Worthless. Make sure your elbow touches all the way in like so. That's the most important thing. Secondly, try to get your elbow as far underneath as possible. Don't have the elbow out here somewhere. So we want our elbow to come forward and under. Once it goes in there, we're going to perform a slight slouch, which puts my rib cage against his cheekbone. So when Placido goes to turn towards me,
I can't, he's cross-faced.
Physically can't do it. Okay? So the whole thing is we start off by taking a movement where our hand starts on the back of the neck and our whole elbow slips around the corner and shoots in. Your thumb goes to your own belly button. The further your hand from your belly button, the less successful you're going to be. So elbow forward, thumb to belly button. You won't be able to see the thumb detail regardless of the angle that I show it to you. You just won't be able to see it because my whole body will be on top of it. But you have to understand, I'm shooting my elbow forward and my thumb is touching my belly button. So first we see his face is pointing up to the ceiling, so that's the opportunity. Once we've identified the opportunity, we look towards the opposite hip. If I look at him, I'll never get my elbow in the right position. I can't look at him. I look at his hip. And that sets up the elbow position we want. And then my thumb touches my own belly button. Don't sit through. You sit through and he bridges over his right shoulder. You go right over from the start. Okay? I see this all the time. People say, oh, if I sit through, I'll get a better angle with my elbow. Yes, you will. But you have no stability. And your opponent will simply time it and take you right over. So, we start off, hand in close, elbow slips around the corner, and we shoot the elbow all the way through and touch our belly button, and we come down to a partial sit through. Never a full sit out. Just staying like so. When Placido goes to turn towards me with his cheekbone,
Look here.
my rib cage makes it impossible. Okay? Now, you won't be able to see yourself what I'm about to show you. It's going to happen behind you, so you'll never be able to see it. But you will be able to see it in anybody else unmistakably. Drew, can I borrow your chair? Lie down, Drew. Placido, you all right? Okay, Drew, put your shoulders towards the camera. Placido, come on this side for a right-handed strangle. Okay, just try to replicate what we just talked about and shoot your arm through.
So, slant.
Good.
Arm goes through, I touch my clavicle.
Good. Okay, now this hip comes down. Good. Now, just change your angle just a little bit. Not quite that far. Good. Now, this is the infallible sign that you are in a good position to strangle. Do you see Drew's chin? The chin is positioned right in the center of the armpit. That is the perfect alignment for a good strangle. You can identify it immediately, okay? The rib cage and lat muscle prevents Drew from turning inwards. He tries to turn, can't do it, okay? The arm is perfectly set for the strangle and is visually identified by the fact that the point of Drew's chin is right in the central part of Placido's armpit. If you see this, you know the strangle is perfect. Unfortunately, as the strangler, Placido can never see this. So you have to develop a feel for it. But visually in your mind, this is the goal that you're trying to get. Release a little bit of pressure, Placido. If Drew turns inside and the chin goes under, now when he tries to apply the strangle, it'll never work. Okay? If Drew turns too much onto his side, and now when he tries to sit through, it'll never work. There's other things you can do from here, but it won't be a north-south strangle. Okay? So from Placido's perspective, his whole thing is to catch the point of Drew's chin right in the center of his armpit where the tricep muscle meets the lat muscle, right in here. If you can get that alignment with this hip down, Placido, good, you will have a perfect north-south strangle, okay? Now, that's the good news. You know what you're supposed to do. The bad news is, as the strangler, you will never be able to see that because it's happening behind you. So you have to develop a feel for it. But visually, as a student looking on this now, this is the goal, to put that point of his chin right there into the center of your armpit where the tricep intersects with the lat muscle, right there. Thanks, fellas. So, with that in mind, as we come in, we identify the opportunity. His chin is pointing upwards. We come around the corner. We shoot our elbow into the shoulder. We touch our own belly button, and we slouch down, and we get our chin right here on this shoulder, just like so. Okay? If my chin stays on this side of the center line, impossible to get a strangle, and my opponent can turn into me. Turn in, he can turn his chin. So watch my chin. It's currently on the right-hand side of Placido's body. I go across the center line and up to the shoulder. Now when he goes to turn into me, can't do it. If you look at Placido's chin, it's perfectly positioned. I can feel it right there in the point of the armpit. From this position, we're now going to start going into our strangle. Okay? Now, fellas, when you go to learn the North-South Strangle, I want you to learn a one-handed strangle first. Why? Because when you can make your opponent strangle with one hand, you know the mechanics of your strangle arm are perfectly set. So we're going to do an experiment right now. From here, arms up. From here, we're going to start off just like this. I shoot my arm around the corner. My whole elbow goes under and I touch my belly button. And then I take my rib cage down into my training partner and I transfer my chin from one shoulder for entry and the other shoulder for finish. You can see that Placido's chin is perfectly positioned in my armpit. Now, with only one hand, I'm not locking my hands. All I'm going to do is move across the body and put my hand on my own rib cage. And you will see that Placido strangles with one hand. Okay? When you can strangle with one hand, you know the mechanics are good. And then when we go to the next part, which is to lock our hands, we're going to put people out very, very quickly and very, very easily. Okay? We're going to show this from a bunch of different angles so you learn to set the first hand correctly. It's no exaggeration to say that 90% of the strangle comes from the first hand and how well you set that first hand. If you set the first hand well, everything else is going to be easy. If you screw up the first hand, no amount of squeezing with the second hand is going to help you. Okay, let's change our angle, Placido. So we're here, like so. Okay, first I'm going to start with no setup. I'm just showing just pure mechanics here. Okay, so I just start off, no setup, hands in place, and now I just take my arm and I just shoot it around the corner like so. Okay, I should be able to move the hand in fairly quickly. If you come in at 3 miles an hour, he's going to turn in towards you, and you'll never get it. So in competition, we should be able to move relatively quickly. So we practice the skill of coming in with a quick and decisive entry. Okay, then I take my thumb into my belly button and we go over the top. So from here, we come into a good move. Look how my chin starts on his right shoulder. My chin's over Placido's right shoulder. Set, chin to left shoulder. Arm, chin to left shoulder. And now, from here, just one-handed, and it's done. Okay? So sorry, buddy. The major mechanic. Get off me, fat bastard.
That's the guy from Austin Powers. He's Irish, you're not though.
From here, the key elements when we're on top of our opponent, just the setting of the strangle hand. We shoot the arm around our opponent, and my chin goes from right shoulder to left shoulder. So when Placido goes to turn into me, impossible. Now, watch as I roll my chest across Placido's center line. And that's what creates the strangle. I know there's a lot going on there, and it's really hard to see it because the movements in the north-south are very, very small. So I'll demonstrate it one more time. Okay. I got no setup. I shoot the arm. Even as I'm shooting the arm, I'm rolling the rib cage, putting my thumb, there's my thumb, onto my own belly button, and my chin goes from one shoulder across to the other. And it creates an immediate strangle. When you get good at north-south strangles, the strangle comes on shockingly quickly. You're there in bottom side control, everything seems okay, and then you're strangling. It's quite disconcerting. So, again, here we are. We make the movement, and it's on. Then we just roll across the center line, and with one hand, it's all done. I urge you guys to practice strangling with one hand. Once you get comfortable with the idea of just starting from a cold start, no setup, and just strangling your bodies with one hand, you're going to find it is very, very easy with a good setup to get to the strangle under combat conditions. And then with locked hands, you're going to put a lot of people out. Now, one of the difficulties associated with teaching a good north-south strangle is that the movements are so small, and because your opponent's underneath you and you're literally covering the whole area that's being strangled with your body, it's kind of hard for students to see what the hell is going on. Here's a detail that you can't really see, but it can be demonstrated solo, and once the idea is explained to you, you'll be able to do it yourselves on the mat pretty easily. Okay, when we go to enact a north-south strangle, when you first put your arm around your opponent, there's a big old space around here, inside the circumference of your arm. Okay, remember you're locking first with one hand. Now that's a big old space. Your opponent's neck can easily fit into that space. So what we want to do is we want to close off space. Now, the way you would close off space is to bring your elbow in towards your body, and then there's significantly less space. And as we get closer in, less and less and less until there's no space. Okay? At that point, your opponent would have his head cut off, so that wouldn't be any good. But the idea is you start with a big circumference when you first reach around your opponent's head, and then you lessen it over time. But that's where the problem starts. If we were in a guillotine strangle, okay, if we locked over a guillotine, we would bring our elbow inwards. You would take your elbow and bring it in to lessen that space in order to strangle someone. But when you're north-south, you can't do that because your elbow's stuck on the mat. You can't bring your elbow in. You physically can't do it. So how the hell are we going to bring our elbow in to lessen the circumference of our strangle arm if you can't move your damn elbow? You're going to do it by moving your hips. There is the circumference, and your whole thing is to walk north-south until the space is closed. Again, with a guillotine, you close the space by bringing your elbow into your ribs. If I can't move my elbow, I've got to bring my ribs into my elbow. The exact opposite of what you do for a guillotine. So from north-south, we create the circumference, and then we have to walk until we close off all the space and strangle. Plus, let's demonstrate this with your head here and your feet there. Okay, so here, big circumference. Placido feels no strangle. I take my chin over to the other side. He feels a partial strangle. Just the movement of my chin has tightened things up. One-handed, what we do now is we walk. And that's where he feels the strangle. Okay? As you walk to the center line, you do what any good strangle does, which is to tighten the noose around your opponent's neck. Just as every strangulation is the act of tightening a noose, so too with naked strangles, where you take a wide noose and narrow it. In the case of a guillotine, you do it by moving the elbow to the center line. In the case of the north-south strangle, you do it by moving the center line towards the elbow. The exact opposite of what we normally do. That's why so many people screw up north-south strangles, because they grew up doing guillotines. They try to do the same thing with the north-south. It doesn't work. Okay? So, if I just try to squeeze from here, there's no effect. He just grabs a hold of my elbow, the other elbow, good, and nothing happens. Okay? So your whole thing from this position is to bring your chin down and then walk across the center line. And that creates an ungodly strangle, even with one hand. So, we look at the idea of just straight up mechanics of the first and most important arm, the strangle arm, and a north-south strangle. But of course, when you do it in competition, you'll be finishing with two hands. You'll be locking your hands. And you should be, because as you guys know from every video you've ever seen with me, locked hands and locked feet are much stronger than unlocked hands and feet. So we do understand that 90% of the strangle comes from the first arm, and you've got to get good at setting that first arm well. We've seen how to do that. Now it's time to actually lock everything up and finish with locked hands. So let's have a look at this. Plus, you'll have your head here and feet out this way. Okay. Now, from here, we start off chest to chest. We take our strangle arm. As the strangle arm comes in, we turn the hip ever so slightly down so that the outside of my knee is on the mat. We don't sit out and become unstable. Just enough, just like so. And then from this situation, our whole thing is to make sure that we start walking across the center line. At the same time, we're going down the body. I don't want to come up here, over. We want to come down the body. We're going to take our hands, and we're going to lock them here. Once we get that lock, we're going to use our locked hands to push Placido away. He doesn't move, I move. I should almost feel like I'm falling away from him and there's a danger of disconnecting. Don't worry, you'll never disconnect. It's not going to happen. And then from here, we shift towards the center line and we take our elbow to follow us. And then from this position, I just take my right shoulder down onto the esophagus and we get a perfect strangulation. Okay, I'm just going to demonstrate it solo one time, Placido, so people can see the action here. Okay, we start off like so, and the right strangle arm goes around. I touch the outside of my right knee to the floor. As a result, my rib cage blocks his face and prevents him turning back into us. Now from here, we start the action of walking towards the center line. The further we walk, my hand gets exposed to the other hand and we lock everything up. Now we come to belly down position. From belly down, I use my locked hands to push my body away from his body, down his body towards the head. And then we bring our shoulder, in this case it's my right shoulder, to my right hand. And that's what closes the space. Don't try to lift your hands up to your chest like a guillotine. No. Bring your shoulder down like a paper cutter coming down on him. And the more you get your elbow underneath you, the further you can bring the other shoulder down. If your arms are extended, you're killing your own strangle. So make sure your elbow comes all the way back so that your right shoulder can come down to your right hand, and then you just walk to the center line and strangle right here. Okay? So with all that in mind, we're here, chest to chest. We take our arm all the way around, and even as we're doing it, we're already putting our outside of our right knee down on the floor. Our chin has come to our opponent's left shoulder. So right-handed strangle, chin on the left shoulder. From this position, we walk around and expose one hand to the other. Now we use our locked hands to push our body away and take our elbow underneath us. Now I take my right shoulder down to my right wrist. And the strangle is set and it's done. Like any submission hold, the north-south strangle has its weaknesses and it has its counters. It's a move which people tend to be aware of and respect, because respected people in the sport have used it at a high level to win. But it doesn't figure that prominently in most international competitions. You see it every so often, but it's not a consistent winner. Even the athletes who specialize in its use it only for a short period in their careers. And they didn't use it throughout the length of their careers. They use it for one part of their career and then stop using it. So people say, It's worth knowing, but it's not that good. There's some validity to that. But it's important that we understand what are the major counters to it so that we can bypass those counters and be more successful. Okay, the number one counter is always going to be your opponent turning his head towards you. Okay, it's the smartest thing for your opponent to do, and they're always going to look to turn in. So, in order to strangle someone with a north-south strangle, they have to be at least looking up vertically and preferably looking slightly away from us. If they turn, let's turn this way, if Placido's head turns in towards me, that's going to screw everything up. Now, don't get me wrong, there's other things I can do, but a north-south strangle is unlikely to be one of them. So, we always want to start with shoulder pressure, keeping our training partner's chin pointing away. And then we want to be able to make a quick transition. But when you're going to make the transition, that's when they turn towards you and you've lost everything. Okay? So what prevents the guy from turning? Well, when my elbow moves, my elbow never moves alone. When the elbow moves, the hip moves. As the elbow goes, watch the outside of my right knee. The outside for a right-handed strangle, the outside of my right knee goes to the mat. So when he goes to turn in, the hips can turn, but the part of the head, the part that counts, the head can't. What I want to do is to create a barrier of my rib cage so that when he turns towards me,
cross-faced.
The face can't do it. Normally, a cross-face is done with the shoulder. In a north-south strangle, it's done with the side of the ribs. He goes to turn in. The lower body can turn, but not the head. Okay? So, what we want to do is develop the skill is as the elbow moves, the hips move. And we end up in this position. Don't make this mistake. Don't sit out with your legs. Now he bridges, out of the way, and can take you right over. So, from the situation where we start off, look how, even as my elbow moves, your rib cage is in place. He goes to turn into you, that face ain't going anywhere. Okay? Now, learning to coordinate this is a big part of your success. As we flip the elbow, everything comes down to the mat. And you'll notice the outside of my right knee is on the floor. But my right leg is still behind my left leg. I never switch my legs. Just like so. He goes to turn in. So difficult. In fact, he always feels like he strangles himself when he turns in. So, stopping the turn in is all about that hip drop. I recommend when you go to do it, take your foot up to your buttocks. Okay? Foot up to buttocks so that when we make that turn, I can slap my foot down to the mat and we get a very quick transition into the move like so. Okay? Now when he goes to turn in, impossible. Set. Second big problem. Framing. Once we get into the position, Placido can lock his hands in a frame and put it under my chin. In order to strangle Placido, my chin has to come down to the opposite side of my strangle arm. If I'm hitting a right-handed strangle, my chin has to come to his left shoulder. If Placido's smart, he's going to form a forearm frame under my chin and prevent this from happening. Okay? So, from a situation where I get my strangle arm set, Placido forms a frame. Drop the sleeve, Placido. Placido forms a frame, and now when I try to bring my chin down, I can't lock my hands. I can't move backwards to strangle. I'm strangling myself. It's like, I'm stuck here. So what are we to do? We thumb block. That's why it's good to be able to do this one-handed. We thumb block, and we take our head and we roll it, and we look and put our ear on his chest, so that when he tries to put his hands in a second time,
it's awkward.
It's not going to work. Okay? Then we connect our hands and walk everything back to the center line. We push down the body, and then from this position, we strangle. Okay? So, here's what I'm going to recommend to you. when you hit this move, hit it one-handed and use this hand to prevent him from framing. I'm going to show you a demonstration now. Feet this way, Placido. So, Placido is going to try to frame us out from this position. We come in and lock. Go. And we strangle. Okay? You can't let that forearm come in on you. Okay? Now, another element. Every so often, you got to hit this move on a guy that's just a freaking Hercules. And you lock it, everything's looking good, and the guy just bridges you over from bottom north-south, and now you're bottom north-south underneath him. It can happen, especially when there's a big weight discrepancy. Looks like this. We get everything set, and then in the partial sit-out position, Placido just hits a Titanic bridge, and you're like, oh my God, that just went to hell. Okay, what do we do about this? Okay, well, you could just press the ejection button and get the hell out of there. Okay, but I'm going to offer this to you instead. If you feel, as you come in here, that this guy just hits a big old bridge on you, just take your hands and lock them, and then put your hand right there on your training partner's lat muscle. Now, Placido, try to get out of here.
Wow. I did not expect that.
Yeah. You just hit the bottom. You hit the strangle from the bottom, okay? But you don't hold like this anymore. You figure for it and then hide your hand. Interestingly, your opponent has no ability to peel your hands because they're behind his back. So it's hard for him to get away. Let's have a look at this again. Okay. We come in and lock him up. He goes into frame. And it's done. Okay? You will notice that what I do is a slight bridge. I don't hit my ass on the floor. I put weight onto him by bridging. And do you remember what we said before, guys, about bringing the elbow to the center line and how that's critical to any strangle? I take my figure four and I bring my elbow to the center line. So once again, Percy, I think you'll agree, it's quite shocking how strong this
It is.
You feel like, oh, I'm on top of the guy and I've won. And then,
Yep.
oh my God.
I didn't expect that.
So we come in and we lock it up. Before we can get into a good position, he goes to take us over. And it's done. Okay? Drew, can we borrow your chin? Possibly. Can you hit this?
Yeah, can I see it?
Absolutely. So, we're here. We shoot the arm around, and when I hit that partial sit out, he goes to take me over. We just put the hand right in the middle of the back. Choke everything up and tight, and I bring my hips off the ground, and my elbow comes into the center line.
This one comes into
This elbow comes into the center line, so everything drags across.
So I start with a cross face.
Good. Start with a standard north-south. One arm goes around. Even as your right arm comes around, your hip drops. No. Right arm, no. Arm and leg together.
So stand north south.
No, start with a cross face.
Start with a cross face.
Good. Now, shoot your arm and your hip together. Good. Unfortunately, before we can get set, he bridges us right over. Now, go back. No, go back. Let's make sure our arms are set in a way where his arm never gets in the way. So, from here, one arm strangle. Now, we can't have our left arm there, Placido. Now his arm's going to interfere with your attention.
So I need it.
Yes, good. Now, from here, he goes to take you over. Figure four. And
I feel it.
yeah.
One more time?
Yeah.
So the crossface situation.
Beautiful. Does that make sense, buddy?
It does.
So that's how you counter these common problems. The most common problem by far is people turning in. So it's all about that ability to punch your hip down to the mat. So if Drew's down, by far and away the most common problem we run into is you try to shoot the arm in and he just times it and turns in. Nope, just turns towards me. and then it's all gone, okay? So what we want to do is we always want to make sure that even as my arm goes around his head, we're already turning that hip down to the floor. So the hip goes down and the outside of my right knee is on the mat. This is the position you want. A 90-degree split in your legs. Don't have your feet together and don't sit through in the wrong direction, okay? 90-degree split, just like so. Outside of my right leg on the floor, okay? So here we are. Even as the right arm goes, you're in place. Okay, now from this position, next big danger is him locking his hands. So we're always looking to get outside of his elbows. We never want his forearms underneath. We always turn and get them in. Then we start the action of walking to the center line so we can connect our hands and drop. Once we drop, we push so that my chin is underneath the shoulder. My chin's up here, he can start getting underneath my head. We never want that. So we always take our hands and push so we come down the body. Your opponent, when you're in this position, sometimes has the ability to bridge. When we see that, we lock everything up, we take our hips off the mat, and we strangle. Okay? So that way you run through all of the major counters before they occur. Does that make sense? Sure. Good stuff, guys. Now, we'll be looking at some cool stuff with regards to mechanics to north-south strangles, but we don't just want to talk theory all day. We want to be able to go out there and beat someone on the mat. So we've got to get more practical now. What are some setups that enable us to get in there and strangle a guy who doesn't want to be strangled? You've passed his guard, you've gotten side control. Now it's time to finish him. It's flat on the back, flat on his back. Some of the regular submissions aren't working. We're a little older, we're a little less athletic. We're not the kind of guy that's going to jump into Katagatame armbar or go into a mounted triangle or anything that requires good flexibility and dexterity. So north-south strangle is a good option. What are some ways to make this happen against someone who knows what it is, maybe knows that we've used it in the past and is kind of expecting us to use it? Well, in my opinion, the best setups to north-south strangles involve the use of your opponent's far arm. The arm creates a distraction to your opponent. It creates a distraction in two ways. The first is physical pressure. Okay, you can make it hard for the guy to breathe, and you can make it physically painful for him to be underneath your pin. These are never pleasant things to deal with, and your opponent gets distracted by the inability, or not the inability, but the difficulty of breathing and the physical pain and duress that he's in, and gets forgetful. And as a result, you can get into your north-south strangle. The second thing they do is they create the threat of other submissions, in particular, Katagatame and Kimura. And as your opponent starts to worry about those, they get forgetful about the neck. So, how does this work? First method. From a situation where we have an underhook on our training partner with side control, and we have an underhook in this position here. We're going to use the underhook to feed our second hand in. So I started with a right arm underhook, and I'm going to switch here to a reverse overhook in place like this. Now we're going to come back down to the mat, and we're going to walk around our training partner's body across the center line. I'm going to suck the arm in tight, and I'm going to take my body into a sprawling position relative to his body. So that Placido starts to feel some abdominal pressure over the diaphragm. When he goes to breathe in positions like this, it's not so easy. He's worried about the possibility of Kimura in this position. So, oh shit, Kimura. He's worried about the Katagatame, et cetera, et cetera. So he's all distracted at this point. He's distracted by physical pressure. He's distracted by the threat of Katagatame. In all of this, we just take our motion down, we just take our chest down, we just quickly lock up, and we get that arm around our training partner's neck. Okay, now he's like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. So he takes his forearm and tries to put it underneath our neck. We know what to do. We get our head outside. As he tries to put that hand in a second time, it's very, very tough. Okay, we use the floor to walk away from this guy and expose our hand. Now from this position, we use our locked hands to push our body away. As Placido goes in to defend himself, the strangle is on immediately. Okay. Oops. So we start off underhook, side control. We post, walk around our training partner's body. We use the underhook to feed the hand in. And we get to the reverse overhook. And we start coming down to a good sprawling position, putting some pressure on this guy and making his life miserable. Then in one motion, we come in and capture this guy, coming down to a hip. This Placido tries to turn back into us. Very, very difficult. He tries to frame underneath us. We're moving and getting our head down and away to the side. We're starting to expose one hand to the other. Then from here we push our body down his body. And as a result, we get to that stranglehold very, very quickly. So this is a very, very practical way to force our way into the north-south strangle using that thread on the far arm. So that was the underhook method. Now let's look at the reverse overhook method. There's going to be times this guy's arms are in tight. He can't get to underhooks. So what are you going to do now? We're going to switch from conventional pins to reverse crossface and north-south pins. And as a result, from the north-south position, we're going to finagle our wrist through underneath our training partner's arm and go into that exact same position that we saw previously. We're going to take our bicep underneath our training partner's head, just like so. And off that initial pressure, we're just going to take our forearm, we're going to go right around the corner and lock that arm in. So when Placido goes in to turn towards us, it's never going to get his head to move. When he goes in to form his frames underneath our head, we're constantly walking. Sorry, buddy. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just gagging.
Yeah. Sorry, man.
It's tight.
Yeah. Even with one hand, it's
just really tight, yeah.
Take a little break. And what we're going to do is going to walk around the center line. We're going to lock our hands together, and then we're going to get that little push. You might be asking, I never really explained this so far. Why do you always do that thing where you push back? It's to take your opponent's chin away and expose his esophagus to your strangle. Okay. Let's have a look at this. Sorry, I should have explained this earlier. I'll just from here. Placido tucks his chin. Can be hard to strangle. His chin's in the way. So what we do is we push, and his chin goes away from his chest. And it creates a situation where my shoulder goes right on top of his esophagus and creates our strangulation. Okay? So he's in good defense position. We've seen this idea that from reverse overhooks, we lock our thumb underneath our training partner's elbows. We walk around the corner and drive in just like so. Putting some pretty serious pressure on this guy. If he tries to pull his arm free, it's not so easy. Okay? Coming underneath his head, getting that good pinning pressure. And then even as our arms coming over the top, we go through and catch. As he forms that frame underneath us, we're getting our head over to the side. We lock everything in. Now we give that little push that exposes our training partner's throat. As he tries to rock away and move away and do all those things that people do, the strangle comes on awfully tight. Okay? So there we've got underhook setup and reverse overhook setup. They both involve the use of our opponent's far arm. Now the third one is unique because it doesn't involve the use of your opponent's far arm. You don't have to crimp underneath his arm and put him under pressure. This one's just a little different. From a situation where our opponent's down, let's switch sides, Placido. Yeah, head going this way. Okay, what we're going to do this time is we're going to start off with a Jiu-Jitsu 101 pin, just like so, like any other pin here in the sport. And we're going to switch our arms. We're just going to put our head down like so, okay? I'm going to come around to something between side control and north-south, okay? From this position, I'm just going to take my arm back and I'm just going to post it here on the floor so that he doesn't feel like I'm trying to get him here. I just take my hand and I just put my fist on the mat. And I maneuver my body a little bit closer to north-south. And then in one motion, I just shoot my arm into position as my rib cage goes in and captures my opponent's head. So when he goes to turn in towards me, it's impossible. Okay? Now from this position, it's all about maneuvering our body around the corner. Now we lock our hands, we come down, and then we just give that last little push. And as a result, we're in perfect position to strangle. Okay? Sorry, buddy. So, from a basic pinning position, just then like so, we switch into a different form of pin using the reverse overhook the reverse crossface, just like so. Now, from this position, we just maneuver our hands and then we just shoot everything forward. Elbow goes forward and we catch our training partner in place. Once we feel we've gotten that arm in, now we're looking good. We take our hands around the corner. If Placido was so strong that he bridged me over in this position, we know what to do. We lock everything in place and finish it. Okay? So these are 3 really practical, simple ways to get into this great stranglehold. The reverse overhook method, the underhook method, and the reverse crossface method. Now, there's a variation of north-south strangles, which I came up with many years ago when I had a client who had very severe back problems, and he could not get down into the north-south strangle. One day I played around with variations that would not stress his lower back. He was an older gentleman, had a very hard time getting belly down to the floor for the strangle. And I made some interesting discoveries about changing the angle and the height of a north-south strangle. And instead of lining up perpendicular, north-south, going into position, parallel, north-south, we went perpendicular so that the orientation was east-west to your opponent rather than north-south. And this created a surprisingly strong strangulation, arguably stronger than the original north-south. I'll leave it to you guys to decide. For those of you who are a little bit mobility compromised and maybe have some lower back pain, this might be a great alternative for you rather than the classic north-south strangle. Okay, the setups are identical. They don't change at all. Okay, and it's the same problems that you're going to have to deal with. Your opponent turning into you, your opponent bridging you over, they're all the same. Okay, it's just the finishing mechanics and the finishing position that are different. Everything else is identical to a north-south strangle. So we'll start off in a fairly basic situation, just like so, and we come around the corner and we lock up on our training partner like so. Like before, we don't want our opponent getting underneath our jaw with his frame, so we're posted on him, we're moving around. But what we're going to do differently this time, instead of going belly down towards the center line, we're going to come up onto our knees. We're going to lock our hands palm to palm, and then I'm going to take my whole head down to the floor, and I'm going to lock up perpendicular to my training partner. And you create a strangulation that is, wow, it's different. It's, in my experience, it's considerably stronger than a north-south strangle. That's because you literally turn your whole body around the axis of your training partner's neck and put much more weight. Remember, every north-south strangle is the action of bringing your shoulder to your wrist. And when you bring your belly button to the floor, you limit the range of motion. But when you're up on your knees from an east-west position, there's no limit, and you can turn your whole body down towards the strangle and create a much stronger strangle as a result. Okay? When you first look at it, you're like, oh, it looks terrible because you're disconnecting from your opponent's body. But I've actually never seen anyone disconnect from this. And in addition, it doesn't suffer from the problem of being bridged over because the east-west position is intrinsically more stable than the north-south position. And as a result, you don't have to worry about being bridged over by an athletic opponent. So from any situation where you've entered into a north-south strangle, but you're feeling that the finishing position might be tough for your body to deal with, okay, we're going to post the floor and walk around. We're going to come back up onto our knees. We're going to lock palm to palm, and we're going to bring our whole head over the top, and my shoulder goes over his esophagus. My chin comes down to my own hands, and then from here, we strangle. Okay? Plus, I think you'll agree it's
strong.
It's probably a little stronger than a north-south.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at all this from a different angle. Okay. From here, we start off, the start is identical. We come in and lock everything up. But the finish is very different. We come up here to our knees, hands lock, then we take our whole chin down, and then from this position, plus here, just try to work your way out of the body. And it's on, it's tight. Okay? Drew, can we follow you, buddy? So, from here, Placido, we lock up, we bring our head down, hands locked, walking, everything comes down to the floor, and we get a shockingly strong strangulation.
That's freaking strong.
Yeah. Let's give it a try, man.
My own question is, does this work in the streets?
Streets with an S or a Z? It's important.
With a Z.
Ooh, I know there's a different kind of street. All right,
So I set up north south as usual. We walk. And now, okay, so at this point, am I coming up to my knees, John?
good. Walking around, good. Hands locked, palm to palm, forehead to the mat. Come around even further. No, don't scroll. We're not scrolling this one. Knee forward, good. And now this knee walks back towards me, good. And now from east-west, drive your shoulder down. Good.
Okay. So I don't sprawl, I stay on my knees.
Yes, exactly. That's the big difference. Because you're higher, because you're on your knees rather than belly down, you get a much greater ability to drive your shoulder to the wrist, which is the essential element of a good north-south strangle.
Okay.
So you create a mechanically stronger position where much more of your body weight can go into the strangle.
Can I try it one time, Andrew? So then.
Tighter. That's strong.
Yeah. Drew, hit it. Everything to start is identical, Drew. So just shoot your arm around. Good. Walking. Connect your hands palm to palm. And now come knees forward. Good. Knees on the floor. 2 knees on the floor. Good. Keep walking this way. Good. And now right shoulder.
Wow. Feels strong. That feels very strong. It would work in the streets.